It's June, so naturally we're talking about how the Nebraska Cornhuskers can finally break through into bowl eligibility and possibly beyond. Although it's a conversation we seem to have every year when the weather gets warm here in the Midwest, Nebraska could possibly be the ultimate sleeper team in the Big Ten this season.
From LA to Piscataway, all Big Ten all year long. This is Big Ten 10.
You know, I think one thing not everybody is talking about right now within college football circles, within Big Ten football circles, is just the sheer unpredictability that is 2024. And now when we focus on our beloved Big Ten Conference, I think that really jumps into play as well, because you don't have divisions anymore, no East, no West. You bring in 4 new schools from on the West Coast who have a different football culture. They have a different football lifestyle, and that lifestyle and culture might win out some weeks. Maybe that culture and lifestyle within the Midwest and that physicality might win out some other weeks against our friends coming in from the West Coast. I think you just put it all into a pot, you hodgepodge it together, you mix it up, you put it in the oven, and we don't know what's going to happen when that bell rings and it's time to eat some dinner. I think that's where we're at right now. I think we got the mixture. We know who's going to be on the rosters. We know which teams are going to be playing who, which time, and in a lot of cases, sometimes which networks those games will be seen on. But now we're just waiting for that recipe to officially be finished and see exactly what we're going to be eating. And I think there is some unpredictability as we wait for that to be pulled out of the oven right now. I think one thing is fairly certain. I think we're going to see chaos, and I think we're going to see some teams rise up that we wouldn't expect to see rise up the rankings, so to speak. And I think we might even see some teams drop down that we thought might have a little bit of a better year. So you look at surprise teams, you look at sleeper teams. And the one team that I think stood out for me was the Nebraska Cornhuskers. I know we talk about it every single year, but year 2 under Matt Rhule historically is a year where Matt Rhule teams make a significant jump, where that Matt Rhule culture really kicks into gear. You look at year 1 under Matt Rhule at Nebraska, I thought this was a 7-5 team in disguise. And you look at the disguise that was this Nebraska team. You look at the injuries. You look at the turnovers. You look at the poor quarterback play. I don't think Nebraska was what they truly wanted to be. Like on offense, they had to resort to some option football type of offense. I'm sure that's not what Marcus Satterfield drew up in the beginning of the year. You look at some of these close games that they just gave away. I look at the Maryland game. I look at the Michigan State game. I mean, you flip those 2 games alone, right? You're looking at a 7-5 season. You're looking at a bowl win. That's maybe 8 wins. But that's not what happened. But I look at last year, and I do take a good amount of positives from the 2023 Cornhuskers, specifically on the defensive side of the football. And when you talk about one of the main reasons why I believe that this could be a team, first of all, when we talk about sleeper as it pertains to Nebraska, we have to be a little bit more specific. Because for them to jump from 5 wins to 7 wins, I don't think is much of a surprise. I think that's maybe something a lot of people are expecting right now in Big Ten circles. But when I talk about Nebraska being the sleeper, when I talk about them being that team that can jump up, I'm not talking 7 wins. I'm talking 8 wins. I'm talking 9 wins. And it's the experience that I think could really pay dividends. And you look at this first on the defensive side of the football. How about the defensive line? There are 4 players in that rotation that are 4th-year guys, that are 5th-year guys. Of course, you look at the polar bear and the wrestler, Nash Hutmaker. You look at Ty Robinson. It seems like he's been around forever. Jamari Butler on that defensive line. Elijah Judy. Some of these guys that are in there that have played a lot of football. You look at this linebacker group as well. There's 5 guys possibly in the rotation that are 4th or 5th year guys. You look at the secondary. There's even more. The Isaac Giffords, the Malcolm Hartzogs, the Tommy Hills, the Deshaun Singletons of the world. Now, maybe not all of these guys on the defensive side of the football that are 4th or 5th year guys are playing 10, 11, 12 games every single season, although there are a group of them that have been. But what I think that experience, just alone, whether you're transferring in from another program or you've been learning this system, especially last year under Tony White, I think that plays dividends. There has been a clear blueprint that has been laid in Ann Arbor, Michigan. When you stack up third, fourth, and fifth year guys, and you get that experience and you build upon that foundation within a system, there's certainly a blueprint there for success. And Matt Rhule said it. I can't remember if it was before or after that Michigan pounding last season. He says, that's a type of program that we want to strive to be. We want to be a tough, physical, experienced type of football team. And when you look at this defense, look at how much they improved during the year last year in Tony White's first year as the defensive coordinator. Now you put in another spring. Now you put in another fall camp, and this could very well be one of the best defenses in the Big Ten Conference. And that is as big of a compliment as you can give somebody on defense, because the Big Ten is going to be the conference of defense. Now, going from defense to offense, but sticking on the same topic, that is experience. The offensive line. I think when you look in the Matt Rhule era, his first year, you look in the Scott Frost era as well, I think one maybe commonality between both of those is there's been a shifting around of an offensive line. There's been some injuries that have been banged up, and it's maybe been the weak point of this offense. And that needs to be the strong point of the offense for the Huskers to really reach that status of an 8-9 win sleeper team and make that big jump that year two Matt Rhule teams are really known for. We talk about fourth year guys. We talk about fifth year guys. The offensive line is chock full of them. You look at Bryce Benhart. You look at Ben Scott. You look at Teddy Perochka. Man, if he stays healthy, that could really help out that group. You look at Turner Corcoran. Although he's maybe a guy came in, highly acclaimed, 4-star type of guy, he maybe hasn't panned out as much. If he stays healthy, he could certainly be a big part of this offensive line as well. And then Micah Mazuka is a guy that has played a lot of football. This is an experienced offensive line. If they can stay healthy, this is a Nebraska team that I think that group could certainly propel this offense forward. And that experienced offensive line is such a driving force when you have a true freshman quarterback, because how good Nebraska does, whether they win 7 games or 8 games or 9 games or maybe, just maybe, even 10 games, the quarterback play has that's a big factor in terms of how far this team can go. A stout offensive line is going to help Dylan Raiola in a myriad of ways. First of all, keeping him clean in the pocket. That's maybe the most important piece of all of this, but also paving the way from the run game, because a great run game and a great defense, that's we go back to that Michigan formula. That's what that's all about. Okay, if they can take the heat off of Dylan Raiola, there's not as much pressure on him to perform. So having that great offensive line, which leads to a great run game with the Dante Dowdells of the world, with the Emmett Johnsons, with the Gabe Irvin Jr.'s, with the Ramir Johnsons, they've got a really good stable, I think, of running backs in Lincoln, Nebraska this year. And it all starts with the offensive line. The success of the offense is all about what is happening up front. Now, I think a big part as to why I believe Nebraska could be that sleeper team to really take a big jump forward in year two under Matt Rhule is because of this schedule, specifically early in the season as it pertains to this schedule, because you got week 2 against the Colorado Buffaloes. That is such a huge game for both the Huskers and the Buffs, but specifically for Nebraska. If they can get that win under the lights, Big Ten Saturday night on NBC on the hype train that you got to assume that will be Shedeur Sanders, Deion Sanders, and Shiloh Sanders, and every type of Sanders that is Colorado, that's going to propel them into their Big Ten slate, which we're going to take a look at right now. And when I look at these first 4 games, why can't Nebraska be 7-0 when we're starting to put the Halloween decorations on our house? When I look at those first 4 games, the 2 toughest games for Nebraska are both at Memorial Stadium. The Illinois Fighting Illini and the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, they got to go on the road to the two Indiana schools, and they're towards the bottom of the Big Ten right now in terms of power rankings. I think the Hoosiers and the Boilers have some pieces that they could work with, but it certainly plays into Nebraska's favor if an experienced defense, and more specifically an offensive line, can lead to Dylan Raiola building up that confidence early in the season. If he can get a big victory against Colorado in week 2, if he can notch off some of these conference W's throughout September and then early to mid-October, that gets you into the back half of the season. That maybe gets you to a 7-0 record when you're facing the Ohio State Buckeyes. Now, I think a lot of people are looking at this Ohio State game and you're thinking, yeah, I don't think Nebraska's gonna win that football game, which is completely okay. Ohio State is on another level than most of the Big Ten right now, and of course that includes the Nebraska Cornhuskers. But you look at the rest of the slate, there still are winnable games on the schedule. But at this point, we're going to find out what type of football team the Nebraska Cornhuskers are. Because, of course, we mentioned on the road at Ohio State. I think that USC game, traveling to Los Angeles, that is going to be a big swing game for the Huskers as well as the Trojans on how both teams really finish the season and if they're going to finish the season strong. Like specifically in this example, for the Nebraska Cornhuskers, you got two big rivals after this game. If you fall not only to Ohio State, but if you fall to USC, that's losing 2 of 3, and now you're maybe going in the wrong direction, a lot like this team did last year. They were at a respectable 5-3 record, and then they lost their last 4 games of the season. So that game in SoCal, that game at USC, the Husker defense versus what we expect to be high-flying Lincoln Riley USC Trojans on the offensive side of the football is going to be a huge swing game for the rest of the season. But if they are able to get over that hump, this Wisconsin-Iowa 2 games at the end of the year, it screams split to me. It screams like they're going to go 1-1. Not saying they'll beat Wisconsin, lose to Iowa, or the other way around. Not sure exactly which way that would go at this point in time, but it screams split. So even if they lose to Ohio State, even if they lose to USC and they split their last 2 games of the season, that's a 9-3 record, and that is a Nebraska team that is in the Big Ten race late in the season, late in October, and then as we go to November as well. I look around at maybe some other potential sleepers within the Big Ten Conference, and there are some teams out there like Michigan. I thought of Michigan State maybe a month and a half ago, but after they took a lot of hits in the transfer portal, I'm not as high on them anymore. When you factor in all of the players that are returning, when you look at the progress that Nebraska made on the defensive side of the ball, they have maybe the best talent that they've ever had at the quarterback position and an experienced offensive line and some pieces at the skill position. I see this Nebraska team being pretty darn good. My gut is telling me somewhere around 8 wins right now, a 3-game jump, but they could even be more of a sleeper. They could maybe even be more of a surprise than that. I want to hear what you guys think. Do you think the Nebraska Cornhuskers can take that big jump this season into that 8, that 9, maybe even that 10-win level? Or are we going to just see more of the same in Lincoln? Leave all of your thoughts, Nebraska Cornhuskers, in the comments below. I'm Big Ten Ted. We'll see you in the next one.
Thanks for watching Big Ten Ted, where it's all Big Ten all year long. Make sure to like the video to spread the word of Big Ten Ted to the masses, and subscribe to the channel for updates on Big Ten content that drops every day.